police chief has been forced to resign. He's been forced to resign because he hired the officer who killed Tamir Rice. Y'all should remember the story of Tamir Rice. He was a young man who, out of Cincinnati, Ohio, who was only 12 or 13 years old. And Tamir was playing in a playground in November of 2014. And the police pull up on Tamir because he's playing outside with a toy gun. And when they pull up on Tamir Rice, he was 12 at the time. He wasn't 30, he was 12. When they pull up on Tamir Rice, they don't take a moment to stage themselves. They don't take a moment to assess the situation. They don't take a moment to figure out what they could do differently. All they do is within seconds, they open fire on the 12-year-old boy. And the officer who opened fire on the 12-year-old boy, the officer who killed Tamir Rice, is a man named Timothy Loehmann. He is 26 years old. And again, he pulls up and opens fire on this 12-year-old boy. Now, there was another officer there. His name was Frank Garnback. He was 46, but he didn't pull the trigger. Now, here's the crazy part. They called in and they said that Tamir was 20 and armed and dangerous. This is in Cleveland, Ohio. Forgive me if I worry that I said Cincinnati. If I did, I meant Cleveland. Cleveland, Ohio, because this is Cuyahoga County. Anyway, the officer kills Tamir. Now, you know, police officers always or almost always get off for killing unarmed people. And they damn sure get off for killing people where they have even the most irrational and unreasonable defense of themselves. And in this case, that's what they did. They shot a 12-year-old boy. And they saw him as a big grown man, because that's what happens. All the studies show black boys are shown as older and more guilty than their white counterparts. They did all of that to him. They kill him. The police don't go to jail. The police get off for this. Now, even if you get off, you don't go to prison. Even if you get asked to resign, or even if you quit, no matter what, right? Even if you get public rebuke or public praise, whatever the situation is, at the end of the day, if you're an officer that kills people and the public doesn't like it, and the police department doesn't like it, even if they don't think it's illegal, but they argue that you could have moved differently, even if all of that happens, which is basically what happened in this case, right? The police understood that he did something wrong. There was a wrongful death suit, but the wrongful death suit is civil. There's no criminal thing that they could do. The Justice Department decided that they couldn't bring criminal charges against the two officers. But all of that aside, there's a very clear thing that isn't disputable. There's a very clear thing that is not disputable, and that is that you don't hire the officer again. You and I might disagree about whether or not you put the officer in jail. You and I might disagree about whether or not there should have been a federal indictment. You and I may disagree on the particulars, but everybody in the world who saw this thought that the officer could have done something different. He didn't have to pull up and within seconds shoot this boy. He didn't have to do that. They didn't stage themselves. They didn't hide behind something. They didn't make an announcement. They didn't say drop your weapon and wait. They did none of the things that you're supposed to do. They killed this 12-year-old boy who they thought was 20 just because he was black and outside. So the one job that the rest of the world had, the one job that the other police departments in the world had, was to not hire that man on your screen right now. That's the only job they had. So what do? They hire him again. The man didn't go to Russia. The man didn't go to Cuba. The man didn't go, you know what I'm saying, to South Africa, where maybe you wouldn't know who he was. He just went to West Virginia. The man went to the White Sulphur Springs Police Department. By the way, if you're a killer cop that goes around killing Negroes, the White Sulphur Springs Police Department probably sounds like the kind of place you should go anyway. He goes to the White Sulphur Springs Police Department, and they hire him. That's right. That's right. The Chief of Police, D.S. Teubert, hired Timothy Loehmann to be a police officer again. To be a police officer again. There are millions of people you could have hired for this. There are thousands of people in the city, hundreds of people in the city who could have been part of this police department. Other people made the right decision. Loehmann, he tried to get into multiple police departments. He tried to join other police forces, and he always got stopped. But somehow the White Sulphur Springs Police Department hired him as a probationary officer. And as you know, he was forced to resign again. They didn't fire him. He was forced to resign. Because you know what? Killing kids is not a real good resume builder, or it shouldn't be a really good resume builder if you want to be a police officer. But all that said, he resigned. And now the chief of police, D.S. Teubert, was forced to resign. He demoted himself to a patrolman. And it's a small town, ain't that dramatic of a move. But the point is a few things. One, we need a system, a national system that prevents this from happening. Killer cops, whether they're found innocent or guilty, and I'm not talking about when you get caught in a self-defense firefight. I'm not saying you should get fired from your job, but if you've been fired from your job or forced to leave your job because you kill people, then there should be some database that makes it really easy to not get hired elsewhere. The other thing is, it's hard for me to believe that you hire a police officer and you don't even hit Google. Because if you type his name on the Googles, it comes up pretty clear. It comes up pretty clear. So either they didn't Google, they didn't search, or they searched and didn't care. That's my suspicion. Because there's a lot of police officers out there that don't mind hiring killer cops. There are a lot of police officers that love to dump money in the GoFundMe campaigns of killer cops. They love to get their friends and family to be on the juries, or they pray that their friends and families are on the juries for the trials of these killer cops. So I don't necessarily think this was an honest mistake. There's a clear problem in the hiring process. And of course, Kathy Glover, who's the mayor of the town, steps in and says, well, that's the problem. She said, although I was not aware of the situation regarding the hiring, I still accept accountability as a city leader, and this should not have happened. You don't say. She said, I accept that there are mistakes in the current process that we have, and those mistakes will be reviewed and changed moving forward. What does that mean? And it's not just for this town. It should be for Philadelphia, should be for Cleveland, should be for Cincinnati, should be for Chicago, should be for every city in this country. There should be a very clear mechanism to prevent killer cops from getting hired again.